Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to talk about evolution of management thought, the development of management thought, how this concept of management has evolved. Management existed from the beginning of human civilization. Human cannot survive on their own. So there are different organizations, political organizations, cultural organizations, and if there are these organizations that are working for some common goals, there's going to be management in one form or other. And this concept of management, the management thought, has only been realized in the industrial revolution period, that was mid 18th century in Europe and America, when the new ways of manufacturing, new techniques of manufacturing, because that was the period when there was invention of power, invention of various other things happened, and that was the period when there was increase in labor, increase in production, and that led to various management practices that was happening in that time period. And that's how the concept of management has grown. And we have three theories of management, three broad theories of management. So all the theories of management has been divided into three broad categories. The first one is classical theory. It comprises bureaucratic model that is given by Max Weber in 1900s, and scientific management given by Taylor in 1910, and process management or administrative management given by Fayol in 1910. And neoclassical theory has two theories, that are two movements. One is human relation movement and second one is behavioralist science movement, that we are going to cover in this video. We are going to cover various theories of motivation: the Maslow need hierarchy theory, Herzberg two-factor theory, McGregor's theory, theory X and theory Y, Likkert's management styles, four different management styles that are there, and the modern theories of quantitative approach, system approach, contingency approach. So before going to these three theories of management, let's begin with the pre-scientific management period, the period before this. So these theories has only come up in the 20th century, but before 20th century there existed some kind of management. And the this management theory, the basis for this management theories is from that period. So we are going to discuss that period also. So first of all, the Roman Catholic Church and the military organizations were there. They were practicing management to manage the arms, the military, to involve. There were various practices they were involved in of communication, and that was the first management practice in history. Then we have Robert Owen. So Robert Owen was a young. He was working in a shop. He was an apprentice in a shop. He was only at the age of 18. He set up a factory of his own that was for textile machinery in Manchester, and it was that period during 1880 to 1832 he in Scotland managed a group of textile mills. And from that experience, from that management he was doing by managing those mills and managing his own factory, the machinery factory, textile machinery factory, he brought some reforms in welfare of workers. So he is known as the social, one of the social reformer, because he bring out this reform in the conditions of workers working in his firm. So he said that environment in which in workplace influences the performance. If you provide good environment to the workers, there's going to be improvement in their performance. So that was his idea, and he even advocated for improvement in work conditions of those workers. He reduced work hours of them for them. Okay, so there's minimum work hours, minimum age for child workers, and he even provided goodies to the workers, the requirements, the necessities to the workers on a subsidized rates. So that was how he's known as father of modern personnel management, because he worked for the welfare of the personnel of the factory, to of welfare of the workers of the organization, and his idea is considered as introduction to behavioral management approach that has come up in neoclassical period, that is between 1920 to 1950. So the behavioral management approach that's there in neoclassical period between 1920 to 1950, the idea that is considered as introduction to that approach is here in the Robert Owen's various practices of management. His idea of providing good workplace, good environment, and good working conditions for the worker. So he advocated for the rights of worker, for their betterment, their work conditions, their wages, their necessary things, all the problems of the workers he addressed, and that's why he is known as father of modern personnel management. So that was about Robert Owen. Moving ahead, we have Charles Babbage. Now he is known as father of computer, we all know. So he has written various papers on mathematics, science, and philosophy, and he noticed that in the factory people are working and wasting a lot of time and materials. So he said that you should use mathematics in operations of factories. Science and mathematics is can also be applied in the management of a factory. So he came up with the idea that is division of work. Okay, so this division of work is now a principle of management that is widely accepted everywhere. So this was given by Charles Babbage. He said that to manage the work in a factory, to make efficient work in the factory, to make sure there's no wastage of time and people that are working in the organization. So for the efficiency of the organization, you should use mathematical and scientific techniques to operate the factories, and you should divide the work. Okay, so that is how you can manage things. So that was Charles Babbage, and he's written various papers on philosophy, and he's he is the one who is known as father of computers as well, and he was a British mathematician. And when he said that we should use science and mathematics in operations of factories, then that's how he is known for the foundation of scientific study of management. And we have scientific management approach given by Taylor in the classical theory in 1910. Taylor gave the scientific management approach that we are going to study later in this video. So the foundation for that model, that theory of scientific management lies here in the papers of Charles Babbage, in the practice of Charles Babbage, management of a factory. So that's how division of work was introduced by Charles Babbage. Then we have two sons of great inventor of steam engine. He was James Watt. So he invented steam engine. He's known as father of steam engine. So his two sons, two great sons, James Watt Jr. and Matthew Boulton, they were managing an engineering foundry in Britain. So they developed various techniques to manage that foundry, to manage that factory, where they were managing the workforce, managing the production, managing all the operations of that engineering foundry. So during that period, they came up with management techniques that are there. So they were, first of all, research and forecasting. So it's very important function of management, considered very important function of management, that you should always research the market before bringing the product, because you should analyze, you should assess the need of the market. So this was the idea of James Watt Jr. and Matthew Boulton. They first came up with this idea of research and forecasting. Then they also planned various things like machine layout. They planned production. and they also started standardizing their products. Standardization of product is important to ensure quality, and they also come up with methods of calculating cost and profits of the firm. And they also provided welfare for personnel, because if somebody gets sick, there were different schemes that were administered by an elected committee of employees of their firm. So there were schemes for developing executive also. So they were first to come up to use various management techniques that were research, forecast, planning, standardizing, and profit and cost calculation, welfare scheme for personnel, for the workers, for the employees. So they are also must to mention here before going to management theories. So that was all about the period before 20th century. In the 20th century, in the beginning of 20th century, we got our first theory of management, the classical management theory, in which there are three streams of thoughts that are identified. So all the theories in this management uh, period are classified into three different streams. First one is bureaucratic model, second one is scientific management, and third one is process management. Beginning with bureaucratic model. So bureaucratic model or bureaucratic theory is given by Max Weber. So Max Weber, in the year 1900, he gave this theory of management. He said that bureaucracy is the most efficient form of organization. The organization which has a well defined line of authority, has clear rules and regulations which are strictly followed, are the organizations that are running very efficiently. So that was his idea. He was a German sociologist and political economist, and he developed this bureaucratic theory of management. Now let's learn various characteristics of bureaucratic model. First one is job specification. Now job specification is something that is division of work. Okay, so if you specify one particular job, if you divide jobs that are to be performed in the factory into various division of work is there, then these divisions, one person working in that particular task daily will come up with specialization in that work. So that is the first idea of bureaucracy model, that there should be job specialization, there should be division of work. Okay, so there should be clear cut division of work in the bureaucratic organization. The work is properly divided both at administrative and operative levels. Okay, this leads to specialization of work. If work is divided, then there will be specialization. And the second characteristics of bureaucracy is authority hierarchy. So there's authority hierarchies there. Okay, so there are director, then there are managers, so there are seniors, then there are subordinates. Okay, so superiors, subordinates. So there's a hierarchy in the organization, proper hierarchy in the organization. Okay, so that is the characteristic of a bureaucracy model. Third one is formal selection. When you are recruiting employees, you are following a formal selection process. No personal contacts, no nepotism, no social status is considered while hiring people. So formal selection is there, and formal rules and regulations are there in the organization that are to be followed. And there's impersonality. There's things that are going rational in nature there, that are as per the objectivities. There's impersonal conduct in the organization. The functioning of the organization is based on the rational and objective standards. Okay, the decisions are based on rules and regulations of the organization. There's impersonality in relationships, and there's scope for so there's impersonality in the organization. So that is one characteristics of bureaucracy. And the last one is career orientation. So that is all based on your performance, your competencies. So promotions in the organization are based on the technical competencies of the employees, performance of the employees. So these are some characteristics of bureaucracy model. If we talk about principles of bureaucracy, then first one is formal authority derives from position in the organization. So organization has authority, so clear higher authority, but that authority, that power to direct, that power to command, that power to supervise comes from your position in the organization, not based on your relationships or your or social status. That comes from your position in the organization. So that is the first principle, that authority derives from the position held within the organization, and that position you've got only on the basis of your performance, not personal contacts or standings, social standings. Okay, so that position you are having in the organization is clearly based on your performance, your competencies. So that's the bureaucracy second principle. Third one is the authority, the responsibility, the task that you have to perform, and relationships of your position with other positions are clearly specified. So that is one principle of bureaucracy: clearly specified authority, responsibility, and relationships. Fourth one is positions are arranged in hierarchy for effective authority. So authority is there in proper hierarchy, and positions are clearly defined. You are clearly defined with your task, with your responsibility, where you stand in the organization, to whom you have to report and who should report to you. So that is how you can avoid conflicts, you can avoid overlapping of jobs. So that is the fourth principle. Coming to fifth one, we have well defined rules, SOPs and norms. So there are standard operating procedures, there are rules, and there are norms of the organization that are well defined. So that is the fifth principle and the last principle of bureaucracy, that manager must create a well-defined system of rules, standard operating procedures, and norms so that can effectively control behavior within an organization. Moving ahead, let's talk about the merits and demerits of bureaucracy. Talking about advantages or merits, this bureaucracy model brings consistency in employee behavior due to the rules that you have to follow. So every task has to be performed within the rules that are predefined. So for every task there comes consistency, because if there are no rules, there gonna be there gonna be things going sometimes very fast or sometimes very slow. So that is how it works. If there's predefined rules that you have to follow, then that will bring consistency in behavior of employees. And if there are processes, um, standard operating procedures, SOPs are there, then the process of handling things, the functions that you have to perform becomes easy, because you know how to do them, because you have the predefined standard operating procedures that you have to follow. And because the organization has clearly defined hierarchy, clearly defined positions in the organizations, clearly defined task responsibilities, so there's going to be no conflicts or overlapping of duties. And because there's selection process that is very much formal and fair, so that will ensure right person at right job. And because there's division of work, that's how there comes specialization, and people working on same task will grow the expertise in that job. So that is experts will be there on the jobs. And if there are experts that are handling every functions of the organization, that will improve the performance of the organization, of the people, of the employees, and production of the organization. Okay. And work doesn't suffer if one person leaves, because there are duties that are formally divided for, there's clear set duties and responsibilities. If somebody leaves, then you have to hire some other person at that job, so you know what all duties he had to perform that has left. So you have to make sure that all these duties are done. So that's how one person leaves, nothing will change in the organization. That organization will not suffer if somebody leaves. Okay. But talking about demerits, there are so many rules, so many regulations that will make a lot of paperwork, a lot of red tapeism. So there's going to be wastage of time, wastage of material by following those rigid rules. Plus there will be no belongingness to the organization, everything is so formal. And that will there will be no belongingness in the organization, and employees are treated like machines because they have to follow their rules and regulations, and there's no creativity, there's no room for innovation. And people working same task every day, handling same duties, same job, then that will also affect the flexibility of them. They will be expert in only one thing, they will be expert in handling only one job. If they are asked to do some other function someday, they will be not they will be not able to do that in those situations. So that will make them inflexible in nature. So these are some benefits and demerits of bureaucracy. Then we have the second theory that came in 1910, that is Taylor's scientific management theory. Okay, so F.W. Taylor is known as father of scientific management, and he gave four principles of scientific management. First of all, develop a scientific approach for each element of one's work. So he emphasized on scientific things, scientific selection, scientific training, scientific development of workers, and he makes sure that workers cooperate with each other, and job match plans and principles. He ensured appropriate division of labor. So his three areas of focus were task performance, people are performing well, supervision, their supervision of workers, and they are motivated. So two managerial practices he were using in the organization, one was piece rate incentive system, and another one was time and motion study. So he did a time and motion study wherein he found that there are two types of motions in a factory. One is required and one is not required. So he tried to control those unnecessary movement of people within the factory, within the organization, and that was his first practice. Second one was piece rate system, differential piece rate system. So he set up a bar, he set up some standards and some time limit within which you have to perform your job. So if you fail to do that job within that time limit, or you miss the standards, you are not able to achieve those standards, you are gonna paid on the basis of that. So people who has met the standards, who has completed their job, their task within the set time limit, they will be paid more, and others who fail will be paid less. So that was his idea. So he has given different characteristics are there of scientific management. First one is science, not rule of thumb. You are gonna talk about facts, not the rule of thumb, not the things that are practiced time with time, that you gain the knowledge you gain with practicing. They're not gonna they will focus on science only, the well proven thoughts, the well proven facts, they will believe on that. And their scientifically training of employees, and he ensured that most efficient ways of working are used in the organization, and divide work between managers and workers, and pay based on results. If you are doing well, you will be paid well. If you are doing not as per the standards, then you will be paid less. So he felt that there's only one motivation of people, that is money. Okay, so he tried to control people on terms of money, on terms of salary or wages. So there are advantages and disadvantages of Taylor's scientific management. Disadvantages is that disadvantages are like, first one is people are to be manipulated like machines. You perform well, you will be paid well. So that is how you treat a machine. You will be commanding them as you will be directing, regulating them on the basis of salary, on basis of money, and you treat them as a machine. You cannot move unnecessary. He did time and motion study that unnecessary movement in the organization, in the factory, should be avoided. So that was how you treat machines, not human. And people get tired all the time working, and if you are tired, you cannot really perform well. Your performance will be affected, and workers are not allowed to choose their jobs and methods and train themselves. There are scientific methods that he was using. Plus points are that when you are doing only one task time and again, there's repetition. Then this repetition brings out new methods, new techniques that you gain with time, that improves the techniques and methods of working. Okay, and standard working environment, people get promoted based on skills and efficiency. There's standard working environment and people get promoted based on skills and efficiency, their performance, and they are paid as per their output, as per their quantity output, how much production you are successful in doing, and how much of the standards you are achieving in the as in the set time limit, are you able to perform your task or not. So the payment is based on your performance. So that was something, some plus points, some advantages of scientific management theory given by Taylor. In the same period, Henry Fayol has given administrative theory 1910. We can also call it process management. So Henry Fayol is known as father of general administration, and he has given 14 principles of management. We have already covered all these 14 principles of management in a separate video. You can go and watch that video to learn these principles of management. These are division of work, parity between authority and responsibility, discipline in the organization, only one person commanding over you, one superior, one boss to one employee, unity of direction, only one plan for one particular objective, subordination of individual interest to general interest. General interest comes first. Your individual interests are in subordination to the interest of the group, interest of the organization. Remuneration, fair wages, fair remuneration of personnel, of employees. Centralization, the appropriate degree of centralization in the organization. Scalar chain, you know what, where you stand in the organization, your position in the organization. Order in the organization, equity, fair means, humanity. So stability of tenure, you will try to retain your employees. Initiative, new techniques, and spirit the corps, that is teamwork in the organization. So these are 14 principles of management by given by Henry Fayol, and they are still practiced in many organizations these days also. So these are well accepted principles of management. He is also given this definition of management, that to manage is to forecast and plan, to organize, to command, to coordinate, and to control. So these functions, he has given six different functions of management, that in every organization management has to do these six functions. First one is forecasting, to predict the future, to plan, to plan something, to organize things, to command, to coordinate with each other in the groups, in the teams, and to control how much of the objectives have you achieved and how far you are yet to go to achieve your objectives. So that is how you control your performance. So these are six functions every manager has to do, and that's given by Henry Fayol, six functions of management, and also six different activities of industry, that in every industry there's gonna be six different activities. First one is technical, second one is commercial, you have to handle all the sales and advertising. Financial, you have to you have to get finances to handle your, to run your business, to you have to find out the various ways of financing your business. Security of the resources of the people. Accounting, all the balance sheets about the profit loss and managerial activities that you have to perform. So he was Henry Fayol, he was talking about the functions, talking about the principles of management. So he ensured, the if you practice this theory of management, there's going to be healthy financial situation of the organization, higher productivity will be there, because you are doing various things that are ensuring productivity. You are facilitating in acquiring goals, you are objective oriented, and there's database decisions, there's gonna be improved employee and customer satisfaction. But there are certain disadvantages also, like all this is management oriented and concepts are borrowed from military science. It ignores environmental changes, and there's a lot of mechanical approach, and it deals with formal structure a lot of time. So these two, Henry Fayol and Taylor, has come in same time period they have given these theories in 1910. And F.W. Taylor has talked about scientific management, and Henry Fayol has talked about functions and modern management. So he is known as father of functional modern management, or father of administrative management, and F.W. Taylor is known as father of scientific management. F.W. Taylor uh, has given more emphasis to the shop and factory management. He did time and motion study in the factory, and Henry Fayol has given more emphasis on office level. He worked from top to bottom level, and Taylor worked from bottom to top level. And F.W. Taylor's main concern was to increase the efficiency of workers and managers through scientific observations and measurements that he took. He observed the time and motion of the workers. He noticed that the money is the factor that can influence the productivity. And Henry Fayol worked for developing the universal principles of general management and the functions, and developing a systematic theory of management. He's given 14 different principles that are applicable in any kind of organization. He's given 6 different functions of management. So he was concerned to develop, his main concern was to develop universal principles of general management. So that was F.W. Taylor and Henry Fayol. So these are three different models of management of classical period. In 1900s, Max Weber has given bureaucratic model. 1910 came up with F.W. Taylor's scientific management, and Henry Fayol's administrative, functional, or modern management. Then we have neoclassical theory. Now this one is the period from 1920s to 1950s, and this period was human oriented. It was concerned with humans and their relations and their behavior. So there's mainly two schools of management, that are human relation school and behavioral school. Talking about human relation movement, it was Elton Mayo, who was an Australian psychologist, sociologist. He went to Harvard University. He was working as a professor of industrial research in Harvard in US, and his main focus was on the people that were working in the organization. So he is given this human relation movement, and his theory is based on Hawthorne studies. Now it's a electric plant. It's in Chicago, in the suburb of Chicago, we have Hawthorne plant, where he conducted various experiments. He, with his team of different associates, he started these experiments in the year 1927, and these experiments these experiments went from 1927 to 1929. They were 2 years of experiment that he took in Hawthorne of Chicago. So he was to determine the effect of better physical facilities on the workers' output. So he conducted these studies to find out what is the effect of physical facilities on the output of workers. So he did 3 4 experiments. First one was illumination effect. He observed the effect of illumination, effect of lighting in the workshop on the performance of workers. And he did a test on relay assembly test room. That was where he put some female workers, and he observed the performance of them by using various techniques of supervision. And bank wiring observation room was there. He conducted various interviews to understand the effect of physical facilities of workers on the outputs. So there was different findings of that study. He understood that not only the physical factors, there are social factors also that impact the performance of workers. So there are different conclusions. Let's discuss them of all these experiments. First one was that there is a large impact of social factors on output that was visible. Okay, not only the monetary incentives, there's the impact of social factors also on the output of the workers. Okay, so needs like security, needs like recognition, morale, the enthusiasm to work, and belongingness to the organization are equally important if you want to improve the output in the organization. There's importance of informal groups also, because in informal groups you will feel more secure. You will be more open. There will be the scope for communication and leadership. Leadership, not only the formal leadership, there's room for informal leadership also, because informal leadership will influence the workers most. They will feel that their leader is one of them. Okay, but in a formal structure they will not communicate properly, and proper communication system is necessary for better understanding between management and workers, and that is very important. And balanced approach, you should always take the situation in a balanced manner. You should not focus only one thing. You should not take decision only on the basis of one condition. You should keep in mind the all things in your head before taking any decisions. So that was the conclusion of this study. So coming up to our main topic, that is the theory of management. So human management thought was given by Alton Mayo. He was the pioneer in developing this human relation thought. He is also known as father of human relation movement. He recognized the human factor in management. So he was the one who recognized that the employees are human first, not just the machine like others. Like in scientific management, they treated human like the employees like a machine. They are humans first. So there are their social needs, their psychological needs that we cannot ignore. And there's no non-economic rewards also that matter. Not only the money matter, there's respect, there's human treatment, there's sense of participation, belongingness, morale, their pride, and their social interaction with the fellows that matter, that is most important, that is more important than money. So non-economic rewards, the human relation. Man is a social animal. Man is motivated by his social needs, and they obtain a sense of identity from the relationships they hold in the organization. And organization is a social system. There are informal groups in the organization that are equally important. The informal relationships in the organization are also important in the organization. They are more important than the formal groups, the formal teams, the formal departmentalization of the organization. So that was the human relation movement, human relation management thought given by Alton Mayo. They said that humans are employees are first human, that is they are social. Human is a social animal. He is There's a need for non-economic reward also, the respectful treatment, the human treatment, the sense of participation, belongingness, recognition, morale, and human pride is also important, and is one of the factor of production. And organization is a social system, and there are informal relationships, informal groups that are equally important in the organization to run efficiently, to improve the performance of the employees, to increase the productivity of the organization. Now behavioral science movement of the same period, the classical neoclassical period, is more refinement of the human relation movement. Now in behavioral science, we are concerned with wider aspects, that is we are talking about interpersonal roles and responsibilities of people. So here we have, first one is motivation of employees for improving productivity, organization as a social system, leadership study of managerial behavior, communication for better understanding in the organization, employee development, upgrading of employee and managerial skills. So we are here talking about human and their behaviors. Okay, so we have four different theories of of uh, of motivation of leadership that we are going to discuss in this uh, this school. We have various other authors like Bernard, Prahad, Porter, Ducker, and they have written a lot about behavioral science, and we cannot really sum up them. So we are here going to discuss the very easy theories of motivations and leadership. So first one is Abraham Maslow's need hierarchy theory, that human undergoes different ladder of motivation. So his needs are there based on these five different needs are there. Okay, so the first two are basic needs, that is first one is physiological need, that is the basic need of food, water, warmth, rest. Okay, so food, water, shelter, the first need of a person. Then he moves on to safety needs, then now he requires safety, security, and third one is belongingness and love needs. Now he want to make friends, he want to make relationships in the organization. Then after getting that, he moves to esteem needs, that now he wants prestige and now he wants feeling of accomplishment, he has accomplished something, he wants some respect, he wants some appreciation, that is the esteem need. And the last one is self actualization, that is he has achieved his full potential including creative activities. Now these are the self fulfillment needs. Now Abraham Maslow was in this view that human needs grow from one stage to another, and there are different stages of human needs. You can directly move from this need to this need, but some people misunderstood that the ladder has to be followed. The theory misunderstood this, misunderstand this theory that you have to follow every ladder. Sometimes people move from first need to third need directly, third need directly, but the general needs, the hierarchy of human needs is this, that is given by Abraham Maslow, that human needs more. They move from physiological, the very basic needs of safety, security, to more esteem needs, love and belongingness, and the last stage in human needs hierarchy is self actualization. Moving to McGregor's theory X and theory Y. Theory X holds that people hate work, people don't want to work, so we have to motivate them. And theory Y says that people like work, they are creative, they seek responsibility, and they can seek self direction, so they do not need to be bothered. So that was the idea by Douglas McGregor. They have given two needs, theory X and theory Y. The people theory wise says that people like to work, they have this drive in themselves, they want to work effectively, they will take initiative and they will take opportunity. And theory X are the people, they really don't want to work, they are lazy people, they hate work, and they prefer to be told what to do, and you need to direct them, you really need to direct them, motivate them to do work. So they are selfish and they have no interest in the organization. But theory Y people have a lot of interest in the organization, they take initiatives, they take very much self motivated, so they are theory Y people. So you need different techniques to handle both the people. And four system of management are given by Rensis Likert. First one is exploitative authoritative, second one is benevolent authoritative. Now these both are the people who uh, these are the leaders who direct their subordinates. They really do not consider them, really do not ask for the decisions, their subordinates, they only take all the decisions on their own. But benevolent authoritative will give some rewards, they will encourage productivity from the people, they will give rewards. But there are two other types, that are consultative and purposive. Consultative are the people, the leaders who listens to their subordinates and incorporate some employee ideas. But in this type of leadership, subordinates do not feel responsible, and they are fail the consultative leaders fail to get people feel responsible for the organization goal. But participative leader is the one who engages his subordinates, solve their problems, there's teamwork, there's everyone feels responsible for achieving the organization goals. So that is consultative and participative. And the first two are exploitative authoritative and benevolent authoritative. The benevolent authoritative is the leader who uses rewards to encourage productivity, but management is responsible for all decisions and there's no teamwork. And exploitative authoritative is the someone who imposes decisions on their subordinates and uses fear to achieve employee motivation. So these two are authoritative leaders. They take decisions on their own. Okay, so first is they take decision on their own, but this one, the first one, uses fear they use fear to motivate people, but benevolent authoritative uses reward system to motivate people. And these two are people, they ask their subordinates to for certain decisions, for taking some decisions, but consultative fail to bring participation because in consultative leadership people do not feel responsible, they do not feel responsible to take part in decision making, but in participated everyone take part, everyone feel responsible, everyone feel feel for achieving the organizational goals. So these are four different types of leadership of management. First two are based on decisions imposed by leaders, and last two are the leaders, they are very much consultative, very much participative, they ask their subordinates in decision making. But consultative, in consultative people, the subordinates do not feel responsible for organizational goals, but in participative they make sure that everybody is happy and everybody is involved in decision making process. But these first two do not consider people's choices, their views, their ideas. And the Herzberg two-factor principles. This is based on motivation factors and hygiene factors. Okay, so motivation factors are the factors like achievement. You are doing something, you are recognized in the organization. Maybe you are the employee of month, you are the best employee of the year. Responsibility you are given, the work itself, the advancement, the personal growth. So all these are motivational factors that brings kick in you, that you will feel you will this job satisfaction that you have will increase if we improve these motivation factors. You are recognized, you are applauded for your performance, you are given responsibility, you are given personal growth, your salary, your promotion, advancement, so you achieve something. So that is motivation factor. If we improve the motivation factor, there will be increase in the job satisfaction. The second factor is hygiene factor. Now hygiene factor is simply, it ensures the maintenance of the organization. Okay, so if there's hygiene factor, it will decrease the job dissatisfaction. There are working conditions that are improved, co-workers relations are improved, policies and rules are set up, supervisor quality and base wage, base salary is fixed. Then if we improve these factors, then job dissatisfaction that we are having in the organization can be decreased. So this was by Herberg's. Herzberg has given two factors, that are motivation factor and hygiene factors. Motivation factors motivate people and hygiene factors are just required for maintenance of any organization. Coming to modern management theories. Now modern management theories are the 1950s and 1960s times of, there are also three streams of thoughts like in the classical theory. First one is quantitative mathematical approach or operational research analysis. Second one is system approach, and third one is contingency approach, the situational approach to the management. So these are three streams of thoughts in the modern period. In the modern period, we have quantitative or mathematical approach or operational research. So it is given by Taylor himself. Taylor, who is known as the father of scientific management, has also given this quantitative mathematical approach. He, after World War II, the interdisciplinary scientists developed mathematical models as solution to military problems. There were military problems, so they said that math teaches us that there is every reason to be believed that every problem has a solution. So they used various models. So models are developed to find the solutions for the problems. So mathematical tools in management, that is problem solving. Okay, management is concerned with problem solving and must use mathematical tools to solve them. Mathematical models can be developed by quantifying various variables of the problems. You have to quantify the various variables of the problem. Okay, like if we have problems like production, so we have to quantify that problem, we have to give numbers to them, we have to measure that problem, then we will develop some model for solving those problems and we will use mathematical symbols. So everything is handled, all the operation, all the problem solving is done by mathematics. And the limitation to this model is it is limited to decision making. Mathematics management is not only based on decision making, it involves a lot of functions, but you are here only talking about the decision making and problem problem solving, and we cannot quantify human element. This is the major drawback of this theory. We cannot really quantify human factors like feelings, like motivation. Okay, so there are two types of variables. We have qualitative and quantitative. So this only deals with quantitative, that is measurable. Age is measurable, height is measurable, but can we measure the feelings? Can we really measure the other things, the human factors, human elements of the person? So that is the one drawback, one limitation of this approach, that you cannot really quantify all the elements. There are qualitative things also in the life, like practical life needs quick decisions. You cannot really collect a lot of information and develop a model out of that. It is practically impossible, and all variables are interdependent and unmeasurable. All the variables we are having has so many influences of so many other factors in the environment. We can understand the economics, but we cannot quantify so many other things in the society, social practices. All these things are unmeasurable. We cannot give numbers to them and measure them. And data in business is not always up to date, and there's no use of an obsolete data, that is data that is obsolete, and that is the data in the business is not always updated, and there's no use of data that is not updated, because that will lead you to the wrong solutions, wrong decisions. So that was the first approach of the modern period, the mathematical approach, wherein we develop different models to study the problem and find the solution for them. And it is very much practically impossible, and it is very much time consuming. It involves a lot of efforts. Second one is system approach. Now a system is something where we have a lot of things, a lot of elements, like we have input, that is transformation process, and then output. So organization as a system receives input, transform it through a process for output, and operates in an environment. So we have pastel environment, political, economical, social, technological environment, and legal environment that we are having. So that is the our external environment. So let's learn what a system is. System approaches. So we have in system approach, we have a open system. So organization is linked to an environment. It is open to an environment. We have political boundaries, social boundaries, technical boundaries, legal boundaries, in which this firm, this business works. And this is an open system, this is an adaptive system. There are so many challenges in the environment to which you have to make a pace with. There's organization as a whole. We have one organization, you have to lay emphasis on one organization. Integration of various subsystems, we have various subsystems in the organization. Okay, and we have boundaries in the organization, and we it is multidisciplinary approach again. Like the modern theory of management is enriched contribution from various disciplines like psychology, sociology, economics, anthropology, mathematics, operational research, etc. So it's multidisciplinary. Now system approach is given by Bernard and Johnson, Martin, and so many others authors are involved in giving system approach to management. So there are some features of this. One is that in system approach we examine interrelationships and interdependencies among various parts of the system, working and efficiency of subsystems in organizational growth. So we acknowledges the environmental influences on the organization. We emphasize on business as a whole, and we focus on dynamic and adaptive nature of organization. Organization is dynamic, it is changing with the situations, with the political situation, legal situation, economical situations, and we have various subgroups in the organization, various departments in the organization. So this was the approach that has led to base for that has give up a that has given a base for project management organization. It helps study the functions of complex organization, and it brings interrelationships in functions. But the limitation is there's no tool for execution, and it cannot be easily applied to practical problems. We have day-to-day problems in the business, and this approach is something that is hard to apply it consider organization as a whole, it consider external factors also, it considers individual subgroups in the organization boundaries, but it cannot really solve the problems, the practical problems, the day-to-day problems of the business, of the management. So it is, again, it is not good, it is not a good tool for execution. Third one is contingency or situational approach. It was developed by J.W. Lorsch and P.R. Lawrence in 1970. So they were critical of one best way to manage. Since the beginning, so far, we are only talking about one way, one best way to manage. May it be scientific, may it be mathematical, may it be bureaucratic, may it be process, but they said there's no one best way to manage. There are different circumstances, different contingencies, different situations, different circumstances where the things will go differently. So we have to develop a technique and control system that is designed that are best fit for one particular situation, not applicable for all the situation, because there's no one best way of managing according to situation, according to problems, according to contingency, according to circumstance. You have to find out the best fit, the best solution for that problem. So advantages of this approach is contingency approach is pragmatic and open-minded. It discounts preconceived notions and universal validity of principles. So all the principles, all the functions, all the theories that we have in the organization, in the management, organization management, are not applicable everywhere. So this theory is in the opinion of no best way of management, no universality of different principles. There's situations where only one theory will work and another will not, and it provides freedom or choice to manage, to judge the external environment and use the most suitable management technique. So you do not have a uh, set predefined technique or principle that you have to follow. So you can, according to situation, according to environment, find out the best suitable technique for management. The disadvantages of contingency approach is that it is argued that the contingency approach lacks theoretical base. There's no theoretical base to this theory, and under contingency approach, a manager is supposed to think through all possible alternatives as he has no right principles to act upon. So there are disadvantages of this approach, that there's no theory to support it, there's no it lacks theoretical base, plus this approach is supposed to go through so many alternatives that you have to find out, because you are not following any principle that is there, that is universally accepted. So you have to undergo so many alternatives to find out the best possible solution. So that was contingency or situation approach, wherein we have to work as per the situation, as per the conditions, as per the environment. You have to find solution to the problems as per the environment in which that problem is happening. So that is the contingency or situational approach. So we have here discussed all three theories of management, and we have also discussed the pre-scientific management period, the period before this, the development of these three theories. So here we have discussed, let's find out, let's sum up everything that we have learned. So here we have discussed classical theory, wherein we talked about bureaucratic model given by Max Weber in 1900s. Then we talked about scientific management and process management given by Taylor and Henry Fayol respectively in the year 1910. then we come then we came to 1920 and 1940s, the neoclassical theory that is based on human relation movement and behavioral science, that was given by various authors. The Elton Mayo was the pioneer of this theory. Elton Mayo, on the basis of Hawthorne experiment, has given this human relation movement, that human is a social animal and he has his own needs. There's need for social interaction, social relationships, informal groups, and behavioral sciences involved various studies of behavior of human, their motivation, their leadership styles, and modern theory was concerned with quantitative approach, system approach, and contingency approach in the year 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Before all these theories, we had a pre-scientific management period that was that that was witness to the Roman Catholic Church and military organizations that were using various management techniques. And the Robert Owen, who is the father of personal management, has worked for human welfare, the welfare of personnel, welfare of workers. He was a social reformer. Then the Charles Babbage, he advocated the division of work, the use of science and mathematics in management in the operations of factory. And James Watt Jr. and Matthew Bolton, they come up with various techniques of forecasting, planning, standardization, and welfare of people in the organization. That was the basis for the human relation movement. And that was the management thought, the evolution of management thought, how the management thought has evolved over the period, over the historical time period. So that's the end of video. I hope you learned the management thought. I hope you understand everything. If you have any queries, write in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video. Keep watching our videos, keep supporting us. Thank you. Have a great day.